Welcome to our live video webcast. I'm going to leave the slides up on the screen for just a moment longer while I introduce myself and our guest. My name is David Carr. I'm the organizer of what we hope will be a series of these online sponsored events offered as educational outreach to the community on the professional value of public speaking. I'm a writer, editor, and web consultant, or freelancer for hire, also for hire as a webcast moderator. But the star of our show is Donald Kelly. He was the public speaking champion at the district level. So he was one of the best public speakers, or the best public speaker chosen this year across South Florida and the Bahamas. He went on to compete at the World Championship in Washington, D.C. I believe that was in August, and placed third in the semifinals. Did not quite become the world champion of public speaking, but I think he'll be back and he'll be making another run at it this year. Donald also uses his public speaking skills in other contexts, and part of what we're going to be talking about is how the skills that you learn, the skills that we're going to be talking about, are more than just standing up on stage. He's also a blogger, a podcaster, a consultant, and specifically a consultant on sales. He keeps his own blog, and he recently organized his own conference, which we might be able to talk about a little bit as well in the context of this event. I also want to acknowledge our sponsor, PwC Digital Services. The image you see up on the left-hand side of the screen is a photo from a pro bono consulting engagement they organized with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I was able to attend and wrote about it for Forbes. Their exercise there was to help the Make-A-Wish Foundation reimagine their whole business model, their whole fundraising model for the new digital era, where people are often giving through things like GoFundMe or Kickstarter, as opposed to going through traditional charities. So they need to revise their appeal. They developed a prototype of a mobile app as part of the event. And what I saw there actually was a whole lot of public speaking. There were consultants who were coming to present the findings of their research. And then, of course, they needed to turn it around too and get the people attending from the Make-A-Wish Foundation to think and contribute. So it was a facilitation exercise beyond just public speaking. I'm very proud to have their support for this event. We encourage you to join the conversation as we go along. If you're logged into Gmail or any Google service, you should see a little chat box below the video window on the event page. Or if you're viewing this on YouTube, if you're viewing the live session on YouTube, you should see the chat box also on that screen. So I'll be watching for questions that can come in. If you're a Twitter person, you can also tweet to District 47TM. With that, I want to get away from screen sharing and introduce you to Donald Kelly. And if you haven't yet seen the speech that he gave earlier this year, it's also featured on our page for this event. So I encourage you to go back and watch it later. Traditionally, the big public speaking prize in Toastmasters is for an inspirational speech. And his speech was inspirational, but it also covered some very tough material from his life, did it with humor. So it's an example of using humor and storytelling skills to get people's attention, hold people's attention, and talk about something important. Donald, let me ask you to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much for hosting this, David, and for getting this put together. And I'm excited to be here, excited to be a part of this. And for those who are able to sponsor and help us to get this out, it's great. I know it's a great public service, and I'm excited for that. But my name is Donald Kelly, as you mentioned, and you did a fantastic job there. So I might have to slip you a 20 for that awesome intro. But Donald Kelly, I'm a speaker at heart, and I've been speaking ever since I was a kid. I developed that more refined as I joined Toastmasters and went through other professional speaking processes and was able to hone in on that speaking skill. But I now have my own organization. It's called the Sales Evangelist. And just like it sounds, I evangelize about selling. So I teach and educate individuals and companies, small mid-sized companies, how to help their sales team to perform better and talk about public speaking. It's so important to use that. And I'm grateful Toastmasters helped me with that. So between my motivational speaking side and my sales training and coaching, I stay pretty active speaking. So it's pretty cool.
All right. Well, one thing we talked about is we don't want to make this too much of a commercial for Toastmasters. Obviously, we think it's a very valuable resource and a way for people to get tons of practice. I think that's one of the main things, is that these are skills that only get learned through experience. But I would encourage you to talk along the way about other things you have also done to develop yourself outside the bounds of Toastmasters.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, I've done quite a few things, and I've done ever since I was a kid. I started off doing speaking, just playing around with speaking. Then, as I went into high school, I got involved in debate, in the speech and debate program, which was definitely a big help as well. In the professional world, I get a chance to do even more of that with my, like opportunities to go out into communities, do free speaking opportunities, and to do podcasting and things of that nature, join clubs and different groups that facilitate public speaking. Because public speaking is needed everywhere, and it doesn't matter what you're doing in your life. It's important to be able to have the ability to speak to a group of people.
Now, where did you grow up? Are you a Florida guy?
I was actually, well, quasi. I was born in Jamaica, moved to Florida when I was 9. So we can chat like a Jamaican sometime in a month. But I grew up in Jamaica until I was 9 and moved to the States, and primarily grew up here in Florida from 9 on up. Went off to school out west and then came back home to Florida for an opportunity and been here since, and it's been great.
Okay. Well, I think we when we were planning this, we discussed that you should probably tell a little bit of your story, your life story. Now, you tell kind of an intense version of it in your contest speech,
Yeah.
but tell us. I don't expect you to give the whole speech here, but maybe give a little bit of a sample and talk about how that fits into the context of how you learn to do what you do, or were motivated to do what you do.
There's things. There's one of the things I've come to realize as a speaker is that everyone has a message. Everyone has something that they can share. And a lot of times we have messages hidden inside of us, and we don't know we can express those messages, right? Because we might think, well, it's not eloquent enough, or it is not sexy like this person's story, how they, won $1 million and lived, overcame poverty. It's like, it doesn't have to be. Everyone has something inside of them that can be said to others and resonate. And one of the speech that I gave recently, and it's something that was a personal part of my life. My family, we moved to Florida when I was 9, and at one point, my mom went through a relationship that was a little bit challenging. It was abuse, physical abuse, a little bit there, and I had to come to a point at some point in my life to get over that, to forgive the person. Luckily, my mom got out of that situation, and it was horrible how it all went down. And in a speech, I speak about how it was, seeing her, she was on the floor and laying in her blood. She was, my stepfather at that time had just went into a violent rage and stomped her head. And seeing her lay on the floor, I thought for sure, in my mind, that she must have died, but it wasn't. Luckily, it didn't happen. But the whole speech is about how I was able to find it inside of me to forgive him. And it took me 15 years to get to that point. And, you know, luckily, again, my mom recovered and he went on and did his life and served his time. And we went on with our life and we grew from that. It even led to one of the speeches I gave before where we were homeless, where we actually lost our home because we didn't have the income, where my mom was recovering as well. So we didn't have the opportunity to have the home that we had before. So we got evicted from our apartment, and my mom lived with some relatives and I lived with another relative, and they had a little laundry room area where I stayed. And all of this all together, just kind of, it helped me to realize again that everyone has a story, and you can use that story for the benefit of mankind. You can use those stories to help other people to improve and to become better individuals, and help society as a whole. The interesting thing about all of this too is then I started to develop this as a career. Like I said, I went into high school and I joined debate, and then I started to speak because I love to speak. I love the opportunity to be in front of that audience.
What were early speaking opportunities for you?
Early speaking opportunity, debate tournaments were some of the earliest ones that I remember. Or there's a thing in debate called interpretations, or they have a humorous interpretation and a dramatic interpretation. And in that, you take an author's speech or a writing or some sort, and you interpret it, almost like Toastmasters, but you have 10 minutes. And you want to depict what the author is saying, but you're not necessarily, it's kind of like acting, but you're not acting. And it was really cool. So those are some of my early parts, because that took me to, you know, throughout the country. I went to North Carolina, I went to New York, I went to different parts of Florida where I was performing and speaking in front of large groups. And that was a big, I guess, starting block with me choosing a career path where I did a lot of speaking. But, you know, everyone, time back to the beginning, everyone has a personal story. Everyone has that message that they can use to resonate. And I was able to find mine. And I still have other stories. The stuff happened throughout the day that, you know, turns into speeches, because there's a lesson that we can learn from that. And I don't know, it's just, that's some of my early starts with speaking and tying to my personal life.
Well, one of the things we're hoping with this presentation that it will be seen by more than just Toastmasters. I think most of my audience tuning in are people who I connected with through the Toastmasters program. I certainly encourage them to share it with their friends. But I think one of the reasons Toastmasters doesn't appeal to everybody is they don't see themselves as people who are going to be standing up on stage and giving a formal speech. They think that's for folks who are running for office, or serving as a CEO of a company. Maybe they have to give speeches, but I'm just an ordinary person, so why would these skills be relevant to me?
You know, sorry to cut you off there. Finish up.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to ask you, you know, why is this bigger than just giving speeches, so to speak?
The thing about it, we give speeches all the time and we don't realize it, right? You can look more professional giving a speech. And we'll give you some example of these speeches that we give. When you're selling yourself in for a job interview, all of us have to do that at least one point in our career. And the way society is right now, you're probably doing it at least 5 to 11 times throughout your lifetime. So you're switching jobs. The other interesting thing is that within jobs, within companies, we have to give presentations. You don't necessarily have to get up there and give a formal speech and convince Congress on something, but you have to express yourself. How can you express yourself? And some people are deathly afraid of doing that, of standing in front of 2 people and express themselves or share a viewpoint or a policy or a company change or a reason why someone should hire me. And I think that doesn't necessarily require you to join Toastmasters or anything like that, but in your personal life, there are public speaking opportunities. So let's level the playing field and just say public speaking is when you're speaking in more than one individual, someone else, someone else in the room. Or like you might go to a bar mitzvah, or your cousin calls you up to say something, or God forbid a funeral or a birthday party, or 4th of July, your mom or dad might say something. We're all going to do a public speaking event in about probably 2 weeks at Thanksgiving. We're going to go around a table and they're going to say, tell us what you did. And we're going to have that uncle who's going to be like so crazy and drunk or something, but everyone is going to say something at that table. that is a public speaking opportunity. The ability to articulate yourself and to share a thought in your mind in a way that it touches someone else, that is where the power comes in speaking. And it's an art that's been around since the dawn of time. I don't care what you think or believe in, but groups of people, societies have been together. And one thing that we've seen is that the ability to communicate with as human being is something that's so powerful. And how much more important it is to learn the art of communication. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think I always say there's going to come a day where you need to go to the school board and argue about something that is going on in the schools that you think is wrong or unjust, or you're going to want to speak up for yourself or for things that you think are important. And you want to be able to get your message across at that moment. That's one of the things that motivates me at any rate.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that. There right now, we just went through a political climate within our country, politics, but you find that people, your kids are going to have PTA meetings, or, there's going to be things that go on, and, you're going to need to go out and share your viewpoints. And that's a great point that you shared with that, taking involved in civic duties as well, and being able to sell yourself.
Okay. I think one of the things that actually is a cliche about Toastmasters is that it's the organization people join because they're afraid of public speaking. And I find it hard to imagine you as a guy who's ever afraid of public speaking.
I think everyone, I think everyone has that fear. If I was to tell you every time I get up in front of an audience, I'm not afraid, I would be lying. Like any good individuals out there within anyone in life need to have some kind of coach or someone to guide you. And luckily I have my own coach. But the thing about it too, I feel that as a Toastmaster, people come here imperfect and they just want to improve. I myself definitely, I did have some public speaking opportunities before I joined an organization like Toastmaster. But the thing about it is, I knew that if I wanted to get better, I had to go where people can help and guide me and to refine me. So whether it's like, you can also join other clubs or other organizations, such as, like a Kiwanis Club, or like a, Rotary Club, where you get a chance to practice and talk to a group of people, or even if go on Meetup and find any groups of interest that you like, be amongst other people and share your thoughts is a great way to help you to come out. But for me, I definitely get afraid. I get nervous all the time when I get up and speak. But I just learned how to channel that nervousness and towards positive energy.
Right. Can you talk about any mentor connections or, public speakers you have observed who helped you get better in some way?
Oh my goodness, all of them. Some of them have mentored me and they don't even realize it. I've just called it, it's like mentor from afar, folks such as like, Bob Berg is an awesome one. If anyone ever read the book, The Go-Giver, Bob is an awesome author, but Bob is a phenomenal public speaker, and it's always great watching him speak. Folks like, Zig Ziglar, you see folks like him speaking. Les Brown is also another one. Eric Thomas, Tony Robbins. Some of these guys who are speakers don't even realize that they're motivating and mentoring me. I watch their stuff and learn from them all the time. And Ryan Avery is also another top one that I look at. The cool thing about this is, again, and I have local friends as well, like Linda Yates and, Jim Francisco, people like that who are in my, circle of friends who are phenomenal speakers. And I've been able to watch them and learn from them. And that's what I've come to realize. When you want to improve on anything, you get around people who are better than you. And if you ever find yourself as the smartest person in the room or the most eloquent speaker in the room, then you find yourself that you have problems. You have to get with other people who are better so that you can learn from them, because iron truly sharpens iron and helps us become stronger.
Right. Well, actually, I think, one pitfall in the Toastmasters experience is that people go saying, I'm going to learn how to become a better public speaker, and they get really comfortable speaking in front of these 25 or 30 people. and they're great in that context, but they might completely fall apart if they tried to do it in front of the school board or some other setting. So you do have to take it on the road sooner or later in order to really get the maximum out of it.
And I think it's like any skill you have, David. You have to practice that and utilize that. And one of the greatest ways that we can do that is going where we can find other like-minded people, other people who are within other people who can, help us out and to help us grow. But if you stay within your silo, then you're toast. You got to get outside and meet other people and use that skill.
Now, we do have some questions coming in from online. That's supposed to be one of the points of this program, so better make sure we pay attention to those. Cindy asks, Donald, is your coach a member of Toastmasters too? I think you mentioned one coach in particular.
Yeah.
A bunch of other people.
Yeah. So my coach actually is a part of Toastmasters. Linda Yates is my coach, and she is a part of Toastmasters, and she's done it for a while. Phenomenal public speaker. And it's been able to teach me a lot and help me in many different areas. And I think anyone who wants to improve, your coach doesn't have to be part of that. Your coach could be like someone who's in your community that's just a good speaker. Find someone that can help you. And I think the key with any coach, David, is someone who well enough that it doesn't even have to know them that well, but someone who can give you criticism, constructive criticism, and that you can take it and learn from it. And sometimes you find people who are just like, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. Like, oh, yes, yes, you did such a great job. Like, no, tell me what I did wrong. Help me, guide me. Tell me where I'm going.
Yeah.
So
that's great. Let's see. Also, Ruth asked, do you have any suggestions for controlling physical jitters if my body shakes when I speak?
Yeah, that's a good one. I actually had conversations. There's a gentleman today that came today on this Wednesday, and that's when I have my Toastmaster club. So I went there today, and one of the gentlemen was a guest, and he is not a regular attendee, but he got up there to give an impromptu speaking opportunity, and he was very nervous, and it was very jittery as well. And one of the things that one of the individuals shared with him was just the same idea that I mentioned, to channel that energy, because we all have that same energy, right? It's right. Either going to help us do something nervous, react in a nervous way, or react in a positive way. The key is to take that and to channel it into a positive way. So before I do any speech, again, go back to what my coach teaches me, and I'm going to stand up to do this. So
all right, this is challenging, trying to do body language on a video thing. But
the thing about it is just doing that super Wonder Woman pose. You know what I mean? Or sometimes I will, just kind of really take myself just see myself as this powerful individual that I'm going out there to give this powerful, dynamic message and learn to channel my energy in that way. And the other part too is practice. What you said, David, early on about sitting in the same front of the same 25 people, or if you have someone that can guide you, someone who can say, hey, dude, you always twitch and Twitter, with your hands and do all those funny things. Why don't you stand straight? And if you become conscious of it and practice that, you will improve. I mean, sometimes at home, I will practice my speech walking around or something, talking, and I just learned that I have my same little tendencies. What can I do to fix that? And if you have a spouse or a partner who is brutally honest, my wife will say, stop that. That's horrible. Don't do that. And it helps me to stop doing some of those quirky things and practice to get rid of those twitching and to channel that energy in a positive way towards a speech.
Okay. Relevant theme. Kate asks, Donald, when did you know you were ready to speak outside your club?
Ooh, when did I know I was ready to speak outside my club? I think it was day one. I got into the club. I got introduced to Toastmasters, and I saw an individual named Ryan Avery speaking, and I saw Ryan and how he performed, and I was like, I would love to do that someday. So I had this desire to perform like that, and when I got to Toastmasters day one and I saw it, I was like, this is awesome. But I'm sure there's other groups of people. And I think everyone has their own moment when they feel they're ready to go out. I luckily, again, had some speaking experience in high school prior to that. So I wasn't afraid of talking to multiple groups of people or to compete. So it helped me to, when I got into Toastmasters, to see that I had a group of people that can support and help and guide me. And I said, I wanted to find other people as well. But I feel everyone, I've seen and worked with a lot of other speakers, and everyone have their own time and own way. But it's when you get over your own insecurities of, thinking that you are going to look bad, that's when I feel it's a good time. And when you feel like you can't do it, maybe you need to push yourself and just try, go into another club or another organization and practice it. And on a scale of 0 to death, 0 being nothing, death meaning death, what's the worst that's going to happen if you speak? And sometimes I find that, nothing bad happens. The world doesn't end. If I go and I perform horribly in public speaking, I just gain some more ideas and help. And it pushes me again to try and go to another group or another organization, another civic group to practice as well.
Now, actually, maybe we should ask the opposite question, because you already had public speaking experience.
Sure.
from another context, from an educational context. I think you're already out in roles where you were selling, presenting, so you're doing it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
When did you decide you needed Toastmasters, or what led you to Toastmasters? Was it something you knew all along you wanted to do, or was there a person who tapped you on the shoulder and said, "This is something that you should explore"?
When you find when someone tells you something, you listen. When two people tell you something, you definitely need to act at that point. You know what I mean? So right. I had a friend named Jared Easley, a coworker of mine. He was like, "Donald, you are a great speaker. You should check out Toastmasters." I'm like, "Good job. That sounds cool and all." And then Linda Yates said, "Donald, you need to check out public speaking." And this, I'm not talking about stuff that happened between, like years apart. I'm talking about stuff that happened between like months apart, right? It was like, a month here, and then a couple months later, somebody else saying this. I'm like, okay, I got to check this thing out. And when I first came and learned about it, I was like, okay, this looks different. I'm not going to lie. Toastmasters was different because I'm like, it's so structured and so organized. I'm like, this is not me. But then I realized after that one meeting, like, as far as like the professional speakers and seeing folks like Ryan Avery, I was like, I can do that. And I realized that structure was important towards the effective growth of the individual as a speaker. And I got hooked. So first table topic, got hooked on it. And table topic, for those who don't know, it's an impromptu speaking opportunity. And you have about 2 to 3 minutes, David, 2 to 3 minutes to give a speech, and off the cuff, or 1 to 2 minutes, something like that. So it was fun.
Okay. Is one of those words you're not supposed to say in Toastmasters, by the way. But it's really hard.
Don't worry, I've said it several times too. So. It's what we call those crutch words. Sometimes we just fall back on. Some people say like "so" or and. So
now your profession is very much related to sales. Can you talk about the relationship between selling and speaking? Are they the same thing, or how are they related?
There are a lot of similarities between them, because as a seller, so my profession the thing that made me money before I started speaking for money was, I did software sales, and I did different types of selling ever since I was, in middle school and high school as well. I had to make money on the side, and you have to work, right? In college, I did that as well. And I eventually came into the professional world where I did software sales, worked for a company in Boca. And one of the things I realized, David, is that you have to go back to that same concept. I have to present a unique idea, something new. Sometimes I go back to school boards, right? I sold to city, county governments as well. So when I would sell, sometimes you have to go to do a presentation before a board, literally, of people, and present your idea of why this school board need to spend X of thousands of dollars on this software, and what is the solution going to help them. Talk about public speaking. Or even sometimes you have an audience of 1 or 2 people, and you're fearful of their rejection. Sometimes you're trying to get them interested in that idea. Public speaking tied very, very closely with that career of sales, and helping me to overcome my fear of rejection, or just helping me to overcome my fear of failure, and also helping me to articulate and being able to practice speaking, before I even went in to meet with a client, was also key, because I wanted a point that I was sharing, the value, to come across effectively.
Okay. Let's see. Let me take a couple of other questions from the peanut gallery. That's not very respectful. Don't say that, David. Edward asks, how do you pick your mentors?
Ooh, good one. How do you pick your mentors? I think sometimes there's a couple ways. Your mentors could pick you. I mean, what I mean by that, you find sometimes that you are working with someone can see something in you. Not to steal from one of the speeches that Toastmasters had, but one of the world champion of public speaking spoke about how people saw something in him. And I think sometimes our mentors, they're people who see something in us and they tell us to do more than what we think we are capable of doing. Those people are great mentors or great coaches. So that's one way. Sometimes they find you. The two, what I would share is look for someone who does that art well. Someone who's better than you, who does that art well and can guide you. Because there's two types. People can do that job well, but may be horrible at teaching others how to do it. And there may be people who are just great at doing it and also have an excellent skill set of articulating to you or to me how we can improve on that. And I was lucky to have a quasi with that as well. My mentor found me and saw something that pushed and encouraged me, Linda. And then two, I saw that she was also a great speaker and I learned from her and I selected her to be my mentor, coupled with her also kind of selecting me. I could have chosen other people, but I just felt that she was the right person for my personality and her skill set and her belief in what I wanted to do and capable of doing.
Okay. I have another question here. This is from somebody with the Firebirds Collective, which is one of the online Toastmasters clubs, which is a thing now, asking, how do you advise evaluators to avoid the whitewash feedback, which I guess is cleaning it up, maybe so making it a little too nice. And actually, maybe again, we should we're trying to talk to people who aren't necessarily in Toastmasters, explain the role of feedback, of evaluations in Toastmasters, and then maybe you can answer the question.
Sure. So it is one of the genius of the Toastmaster program, just because of the fact that whenever you give a speech or in a club, you give a public address, there's someone who evaluates or look for ways of improvement. Because I would ask anyone out there, raise your hand if you're perfect. No one is raising their hands. No one is perfect. So we all can find room for improvement, right? So that's one of the cool things about the program is that you speak, someone watches you and say, you can fix this, you can work on that. To fix the problem though, because one of my friends, he had a bad taste with Toastmaster and didn't go back because of his club, not the Toastmasters in general, but the club that he was in, he would go and everyone would just say, oh my goodness, you're a great speaker. I have nothing to correct you on. I have nothing to correct you on. So he's like, well, I guess I don't need this because I'm a great speaker. The thing about it, I feel there's a code or an ideology that I share with people is to set the rules before you play the game. And if the rules are there already, for instance, if I'm giving a speech and my speech is about maybe talk about myself and maybe utilizing pictures. So we know what you need to judge the speech on. Am I using pictures? And sometimes I feel that people are afraid or too timid of insulting others, or they think they're going to insult them if they tell them that, I don't like your pictures didn't relate. So we sugarcoat it. And it's a human instinct. Nobody wants to be that guy or that gal that's going to, really push something onto someone and say you're doing something wrong, or to, feel like it's negative. But don't think about it as negative. When a speaker wants to improve and they tell you, help me to improve, evaluate me, they really, really want to get that information. Think about it as you're doing a disservice if you don't give them anything helpful. You got to give them stuff helpful. And there's a great format too. We talk about in sales or in just like personal development or even in Toastmasters, a sandwich. You say something nice, you give some meat, and you say something nice. Sometimes some people in Toastmasters feel like they're allergic to meat, they're vegetarians. They just want to give the bun. I'm like, no, give me some meat, put some steak in between that. Say something nice, but tell me what I can improve on, and then follow it up with words of encouragement that can help me to not feel bad, but to go forward. And you find some people who are They're afraid they're Atkins diet. You just want the meat, but you know, we got to make sure we give it a little sandwich, and it helps.
Right. Well, I mean, I gave an evaluation the other day where I started off by saying, I'm in a terrible mood today. And I saw nothing good in this speech. And you just have to take it with a grain of salt because I'm in a bad mood. And, I hope that helped, but I meant well at any rate. I mean, I also think learning to take the feedback is an art in and of itself, because sometimes what people criticize or what they tell you to change isn't what you want to change. And I'm sure you found that with the contest experience. Maybe we should talk about the contest experience a little bit, because so for anybody who doesn't know, a contest speech is a 5 to 7 minute speech, and it can be on whatever it is that you wish to come up with. So it's your own little bit of genius. It's your own work of art that you polish over a series of weeks and months, in Donald's case. So you get a chance to make something that is really good. And talk about that experience and how you go about it, or how you went about it, you know, just this spring and summer. And I'd love to hear a little bit too about competing on an international stage with people who are at that level where they've won at their club, they've won at their area, division, district, and now they're competing with people from all around the world.
This is some great stuff. I actually just put a little note down here because I want to hit up on all of this. Is it okay if I just take a minute, answer the first part about the evaluation, sure, and then go further?
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. One of the things that you see, how can you take the evaluation and process it if it's going to be sometimes this may not be what you want, right? So, and that's true. Sometimes it may not be what you want, but may be the thing that you need to do. But one of my things I've learned, and my coach shared, it's like going to the grocery store, right? You go to the grocery store, you don't buy everything on the aisle. You may go down the cereal aisle and you see 50 different boxes of cereal, but you may not want all of them, but you may just, think about somebody giving you a cereal box. You look at it, you read it, you're like, ingredients is this. Maybe that'd be the best fit for me, too much sugar. You take it, you don't have to put it in your cart. Take it, look at it, and you can put it back on a shelf. Because as a speaker myself, when I go out and practice and I speak in front of different groups and different clubs, everyone has an opinion and they share their ideas. And I take those ideas, I take the feedback, but I take them and I'll look at them. And if it makes sense, I'll put it in. But if it doesn't make sense, then I wouldn't do it. Like, for instance, you're telling me to change my whole speech. You're like, I don't think so. I've done really well with it. I like your advice. This is great stuff, but I'm going to put it back on a shelf. And no one needs to know you put it back on a shelf. You just take it, listen to it, and put it back. But you
also, if you took all the advice,
you'd be a mess.
You'd have a 5 hour long speech.
Because everyone has opinions, right? Everyone has their views and their opinions, and you have to take it and just see which one works best. And that's why it's great to have a coach, someone else, a second eye to look at it and say, it's a great idea, great evaluation, great thought. Take that and let's see how we can fix that. That one, you can put that back on a shelf. That's too much. That's not healthy for you. You know what I mean? So that's what I would say about the evaluation side. You don't have to check everything out at the store. Take it and put it back on the shelf. The second part, the competition process. I have, in my office right now, if you were to see it, I have a whiteboard wall going on here. I have paper. I have notebooks. And whenever I give a speech, the first thing I want to do is figure out what is the story. What is the message and the goal of that speech?
Can I interrupt for 1 minute more? I'd just like to encourage people who are listening in to think of this not even necessarily just in the context of, do you want to give a contest speech someday in Toastmasters? Some of you aren't in Toastmasters yet, or you should be, but if you were going to give any really important speech, if you had a chance to present in front of your whole company or represent your company, you probably would prepare for it, if you were smart, in something like the way Donald's going to be discussing. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to try and give people that little frame of reference to think about this.
No problem. This is one of my books that I utilize a lot for like notes and journaling and so forth, like ideas and speeches and stuff like that. So what I'll do, I'll take my book, sit down and think about what's the purpose? What's the purpose of the message I'm giving? If it's for a presentation in front of a company, then I sit down and I say, what's the goal for that presentation? If it's for like a speech or something like that, I sit down, what is the goal? What is the purpose I want to get across? And I think of a story, especially a story that, or stories that I can utilize to evoke that message that I'm trying to get across. Say it's motivation or overcoming doubt. Then I might think of, okay, the goal is to help this organization overcome their fear of doubt or their fear of rejection. That's what the group really needs help with. I think about a couple of stories that can help to articulate that message. And I might find several in my life where I was afraid of, maybe if it was afraid of heights, or maybe it was something. But I find a story that I can use as a vehicle that I can go throughout it that people can relate to. And the simpler, the better. If it's something like, I was afraid of getting my driver's license, or as I was afraid of getting my driving a manual because I was afraid of stalling in a major intersection in Florida here, Okeechobee and Military. I was like, imagine driving a manual and stalling and being that guy holding up traffic. I would never want that. But if you could take a story like that everyone can relate to, and I would use that story and how it guide, and use that as a vehicle throughout my speech, literally, in that sense, a vehicle, but use it as the main story that's guided throughout the speech. And then I would figure out points that I can learn from that. Is there 3 points that I can pull out of that? Maybe the one thing is, what is really fear? What would fear hold me back from? And how could I overcome my fear? So I might talk about those 3 things and then give a subset of, about that, talking about the vehicle. I was afraid of getting being that person that hold up traffic, but it's held me back because I never got my driver's license. Didn't get a chance to go to soccer games or to the prom because I was afraid of driving. I'm making this stuff up right now. And then, the benefit could have been, I could have helped so many people. I probably could have helped my family and take my brother or sister to a soccer game or whatever it could have been, because now I was able to drive. But, so that's how I typically will do it. And then sometimes my goal is the main thing is to really get the outline and then the context down. And then after that, I put some flavoring on it. I did a session recently, and I spoke about that, how it was, humor is such a great seasoner. It's like salt. You might make a good pot roast, but you want to get the recipe right, put everything in. But when it's said and done, you want to maybe put a little bit of pinch of salt on it. And that's what I think humor does. It gives us, it accentuates what you are saying and gives validity and makes it a little bit more relatable, because people can take like that very serious or dark subject like forgiveness, and then you put some salt on it and make it relatable to everyone's life. And I think that's what it keeps. So I try to get my purpose. What is a purpose? What is the purpose and the message I want to get across? Anyone can overcome their fear of rejection. And I'd tell them the story, get the main story, and then I would give break that story up into get 3 points out of it. And then I would put some salt after I've learned and got the context down. I would put some salt on it to season it. And that's what I typically do at competition. And then also music. Everyone who see me at a competition, I have my music. I get into my headset with my music. I carry my headphones around. And that helps me to focus and to, again, internalize the stuff that I'm speaking. And even if I go out and speak to a corporation, I do the same exact thing. And then
the music is for when you're getting ready?
Yeah, music helps me to get into the zone, man. If you look at Michael Phelps, right, before Michael jumps into the pool, Michael Phelps has his headphones on as well, because there's certain things it's the power of music that can help us. And certainly you can choose your music wisely. I choose music that relates to my topic, something that's if it's gonna be inspirational, something that's gonna help me to get more inspirational. Something like funny or entertaining, I try to get something that's gonna keep me a picker-upper and excited, and to be kind of quirky and just have fun. And I feel when I do that, since I already know my message and know the context and the stuff that I want to give, it just puts me in the zone to like just get there and to do what I'm gonna do. And that tying back to all the way now to DC and being able to have the opportunity to compete with some phenomenal human beings, phenomenal people who are just amazing speakers, that alone was like worth the opportunity to get to Washington. And it was just such a rich experience. First of all, it was totally more than what I was thinking and ever thought of it was going to be. And I think sometimes it was, there was a little intimidation, because you have so many other speakers who are coming from their areas and districts all over the world, and they all have a message that is applicable towards individuals, right? And now it's just down to this top X a number of people. And it was the competing in such a stage. It was great because, again, I think iron sharpened iron. So being amongst those people who are, you learn from and you gain ideas and you leave and you gain some experience. And I got a lot of great information that I took back and that I'm using as I prepare for the future to, that can help me to perform better because I experience. And that's what life is about, experience. In a public speaking, whether, again, if it's you're doing a job interview or speaking in front of the board or speaking in front of your company and your marketing team or some kind of team and sharing an idea, the more you do it, the better you become at it. And that's what the whole DC trip and this experience has taught me so far.
How much did your speech change between what you gave here locally and what you delivered in DC?
I would say probably about 10% or less. Not drastically. A lot of the messaging or anything of that nature is just little things that I would tweak and kind of adjusted and fixed.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me go back to the questions from online. Gerald asks, how do you get over stuttering? I mean, I don't know whether you ever had that problem specifically. We probably all do a little bit of, we call it a start over, where you kind of stammer something out when you're trying to make your point.
I find some people have a, just like a physical condition or, medical condition that makes it makes them very difficult for them to stutter. I mean, they stutter. It's just something that happens. And I feel that some folks, we do it, like most of us, probably 99% of us, we do it on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of times it comes because of, I feel, maybe a confidence or maybe not knowing confidence in what we're speaking about for some of us. And I felt that I've done that where I've stuttered the most is when usually I'm thinking over something or if I don't know the context. So the best way I've seen to overcome stuttering, especially in presenting in front of a group or a company, is to know the material, confidence in what you have to deliver. If you're going to ask me to speak about the nuclear physics, some subject like that, or something on nuclear physics, or it's NASA's latest way of creating rocket ships and unmanned rovers, I'll be like, I'm clueless. I'll make stuff up and I'll stutter throughout the whole thing. Ask me to speak about my life in Jamaica, or ask me to speak about how can I improve selling. I probably can go for days without shutting up because it's something that I'm confident in, right? So the key is to know your material and become confident in it, because the more you do it, the best. And this is something that people do. People see someone get up and give a great speech, and you know what they think, David? They're like, dang, that person just have it inside of them. They can just do that. But again, even someone like myself, I write the suckers out. I write stuff out. And then after I write it out, then I can go back and memorize it. And because I memorize it, I know it inside and out. And then I can add some salt on it, because then I can improv a little bit, because I first created it. I knew the context, then I knew the actual content inside and out. And it makes it so much more easier for me to not have to guess or to stutter or think what I'm going to say, and just be able to flow like butter.
Well, I'm a professional writer. I got into Toastmasters partly because I wanted to get out from behind the keyboard and up in front of people and be a little more comfortable with it. But it also made me a better writer.
Yeah.
Just learning to condense things, having a lot I wanted to say and having to fit it into 5 to 7 minutes, and running over time and getting disqualified a bunch of times. Eventually I learned to compact things down, and actually did help with my writing as well. So those things are very much interrelated.
I know I'm the person on the hot seat here, David, but I just wanted to give you, I saw that you spoke recently internationally, and I know you're a phenomenal speaker as well. So, if anyone, you guys pick David's brain one of these days, he knows his stuff. So it's awesome.
Edward asks, with the rise of online social media, is face-to-face public speaking on decline?
We are on this channel now. I think it's never going to be on the decline because we have human beings, right? We have individuals, we have groups, we have societies. We always have interaction to speak. So Are there opportunities where we can perform like this, where we don't have to be in person and all of us gather together in one physical facility, but we can do it and still get to many? We have that. But to say that it would be in a decline, I don't think it's in a decline, because they're still human beings. We still are going to have family get-togethers. We still work within companies. We still have parties and bar mitzvahs, and we have birthdays, and we still have holidays. We still do those things, and because we're social creatures, because we're still social human beings, we're always going to have the opportunities to speak and to perform again. But public speaking doesn't necessarily have to be in a formal sense of getting paid or paying to go in front of a group, but to listen to a phenomenal speaker. Public speaking could be 3 people out to lunch, or having a dinner, and you're speaking to those friends, because that is, I feel, public speaking, where you're addressing more than one individual. You know what I mean?
Right.
So don't be fearful of that, Edward.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the context of the question about online media, all I can think of is what we're doing right now. We're taking advantage of a free service from Google that allows us to broadcast to potentially thousands of people worldwide. There unfortunately are not thousands of people watching at this very moment, but on the replay, maybe we'll get there. And also, video is one of the most attention-getting things that you can share online. So I'm a big believer that Toastmasters should be taking advantage of the talent in their clubs, capturing some of that to video, posting it to the club website so that people see what is going on in the organization.
Yeah.
And you also do podcasting, Donald.
Yep.
I mean you probably have spent some money on a really good microphone and a few other things, but these are pretty democratic means of getting a message out there. However, you still have to have the skill to deliver that message effectively, to get people's attention for it in the first place.
Yeah, you are right. And I actually have one of my mics here. This is a simple little microphone. It was $40 when I first bought it. Now it's I think it's like $70 on Amazon. But it's ATR 2100, simple little microphone, and plugs into the computer. But the cool thing about this, David, if you see the art form of speaking is, I would say it's actually on a rise, not necessarily on a decline. And if you look at podcasting, I do podcasting. And so anyone who's familiar with podcasting, pretend it's an online radio station. That's the best way probably to describe it. But my podcast is about sales. And some of these podcasting has just grown dramatically over the past 5 years. Past 10, 15 years it's been around, but it's just like took off, where a lot of major organizations are coming in. And folks like NPR. And what NPR and these folks are doing is that they're telling stories. And that's one of the oldest form of human communication, is to pass stories along. And back in the days when we were, back in the days when I used to climb up the hill both ways, people would listen to radio. They'd sit down in front of the radio set, and they would hear stories or hear like shows. And that is it was a form that you might think, oh, it's passing away, but it's actually coming back. It's actually a rebirth of storytelling through the medium of podcasts. So talk about a human interaction. And the cool thing about a podcast, I have friends, people listen to my podcast all over the world on sales, and they'll send me messages, and they seem like they know me because they have connected with me. Think about the intimacy of having someone's in your earbuds. You have someone's voice in your head, and to just build this connection with you, like physically build a connection with you. And it makes it very powerful. And that art form of telling stories and communicating with them. So it's actually building human connection through the use of technology. It's actually on the rise.
Okay. I don't want to forget the questions that are coming in from online.
Let's get some of these questions.
So Ryan asked this a while ago. We didn't forget about you, Ryan. It just took me a while to get to it. How to improve on table topics? What's your advice about how to improve your delivery of table topics?
Table topics. People think table topics is an impromptu thing, which is impromptu. I guess I would have to define that indifferently. There's no such thing as an impromptu table topic. You always prepare for it. And even though you don't know what you're going to speak on per se, you want to make sure that you have some kind of organization on what you're going to say. There's a process. For instance, when I give it, I always have stories. They're called vignettes. think about it. There are different stories or examples, experiences you've had in your life, maybe going to the grocery store, maybe it's biking accident that you had, you fell off your bicycle, or maybe whatever. You think about these stories that you've had in your life. And the cool thing about it is that once you take that, once you have these vignettes, you can apply them to so many different scenarios. So table topics, for those who are unfamiliar, you get a topic, someone literally someone pulled it out of a hat in my club and asked these questions, and then the person comes up and answers the questions. But if you're prepared, if again, it's an impromptu thing, you don't know what the topic is going to be, but if you have these vignettes, it helps you to then be able to take that vignette and tailor it towards a message. So you might pull out an unexpected event, and then I might say, oh, my bicycle, falling off the bicycle. I have a story, a vignette that I already prepared in my mind, thinking about. When I fell off the bicycle, I was riding with this kid, and kid put his foot in the front tire, and we flew off the bike. It was unexpected when the concrete hit my chin. You know, you tell a story and talk about that. And it was also unexpected when a neighbor saw me and didn't help me. And this is a true story. They didn't help me, and I had to walk back home injured and to go back and get my wounds taken care of. Literally, this on my chin. So if anyone see it, that's what happened, a bike incident. But so that's how I feel. So that's how your best way to prepare for tabletop topics is to literally prepare for table topics. Come with vignettes, 3 to 5 of them that you can have that you can tailor towards any type of messages. And one of the things you want to do is state the point, the reason that you're, what's the topic, what's the impromptu message that they're telling you or asking you, and then at the end you want to make sure you tie it back to that. So if it's unexpected event, I want to tie back to that unexpected event. I was just share how I did that. So
and I always tell people, there's no rule that says you can't change the topic. You just want to do it in an elegant way. You want to prepare for your career in politics by changing the subject so smoothly that nobody knows that you never actually answered the question.
I heard a talk on a radio today. So this announcer, CEO of a company, they asked him a question and he totally didn't answer the question. Just like that. I was like, what's that answer mean?
That takes skill. Right. Well, we're coming to the end of our hour. It has been great to have you here, Donald. I really appreciate you supporting this and giving this back to Toastmasters, and I hope also sharing some ideas with people that they can use whether or not they join Toastmasters. If anybody listening in is intrigued and does want to join Toastmasters, you go to toastmasters.org and there's a button that says Find a Club, and then you can look up by zip code, you can look up by schedule to see what's convenient for you. I always recommend people try a couple of different clubs because they all have a different personality. It's supposed to be the same basic educational program, but somehow it actually winds up being a little bit different depending on which one you go to.
Yeah.
And thanks once again to PwC Digital Services. I made some good friends over there. They happen to support a Toastmasters club for their employees, but they were very generous at supporting this completely unproven program that that we threw together on a shoestring. And I hope those of you who tuned in have gotten something worthwhile out of it. Now, the replay of this whole video will be continue to be available on the event page. The replay of Donald's speech, the version he gave at the district level, is also available on that same page. So I encourage you to share that link with other people and help us build an audience for this after the fact as well. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and good night.